Who are the best in-game dunkers in Raptors history, not named Vince Carter or DeMar DeRozan? And what does the future hold for Gary Trent Jr. in Toronto? Hey, everyone. Welcome to Inside The Raptors. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Ryan Wolstat of the Toronto SUN. And Ryan, with all the posterizations that have been getting handed out this week by the likes of Anthony Edwards, Jalen Johnson, and even Chet Holmgren, it's got me thinking about who the best in-game dunkers are in Raptors history. Of course, Vince Carter, DeMar DeRozan, clearly number 1 and 2. I don't think anyone would dispute that. But outside of those guys, who do you have in mind?
Well, the Raptors actually have a really rich history, almost as you could put them up there with any franchise. There's not a lot of things you could say that with about the Raptors, but dunking, they've had like a great crop. Obviously, Vince, the greatest ever, you mentioned, arguably in-game dunker, and DeMar was outstanding. He's still throwing it down at close to 40 years old. But I think obviously you think of the early days, Tracy McGrady, a teenage McGrady was pretty insane. Some of the stuff he would do. There was a guy named Cornell David on the Bulls who he kind of rode like a Bronco once. T-Mac was next level. I think people forget about Keon Clark, and the Edwards thing actually immediately made me think of Keon Clark because he kind of had a dunk, and Blake Griffin did it as well, where you throw the ball in kind of at the end, and it was just. But Keon was ridiculous. He did crazy things. He was nearly 7 feet tall. Long, lanky, with crazy hops. Obviously, he had some off-court problems, which limited his career, but I haven't seen many big guys with that combination of just absolute power, grace, and length as well. So he was awesome. I think people forget about how good DeMar's running mates, first Sonny Weems, and then Terrence Ross, the dunk champion, I think 2-time dunk champion. So those are definitely the guys I'd put at the top of the list. There's a few more, but I mean, Jamario Moon springs to mind as well, and guys like that. Back in the day, Doug Christie was pretty nasty if you're going way back, but I'd say it has to start with T-Mac and Keon Clark for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a good list. And as you mentioned, there's been a lot of pretty good dunkers. You could throw even, Sean Marion for his little bit of a time here. And maybe wasn't the greatest basketball player, but Joey Graham could throw it down occasionally from time to time as well. Now, when it comes to this year's version of the Raptors, it's been an up and down year for one Gary Trent Jr. He's been in the starting lineup. He's been out of the starting lineup. We all know he is a free agent at the end of the season. What do you think his future holds in Toronto, if at all, moving forward?
To me, it's all going to come down to what his camp is willing to take, because if they're willing to accept a fair deal, he likes it here. He's been a good presence, a good, as crazy as it seems. I wrote a story recently about how he's become a veteran mentor. Like when he was traded here, he was the youngest guy on the team. And now he's a guy like helping guys like Grady Dick and Jordan Nwora and Ochai Agbaji and others. So I think he's a good presence. He's never ruffled the boat. The issue is, ideally, this guy is a really good reserve, a scoring reserve, and he shouldn't be a starter, but he's played way better as a starter. So that's the issue. And you're not going to pay him as a starter if he's going to take something similar to what he's going to get. So, I mean, $20 million a year and a bit under, like the cap's going to rise. I think that's a contract you can live with depending on how many years. If he wants to sign a short-term deal and bet on himself that he's going to get better, all the better. But I think if you keep him around for a reasonable amount, then it makes sense. But if he's asking for huge money, like at this point where the Raptors are, I think you can replace a Gary Trent with some internal options or through the draft, which would be too bad because, as I said, he's been a really good presence. He's great to talk to in the media, and he can get buckets. And when he wants to, he can defend. So I'd say it's more likely than not that he returns, but it was interesting that when he picked up his contract option last year, nobody expected it. Everyone thought he was going to opt out and he'd get a big new deal, but there wasn't interest. So, I mean, has he raised his value this year? It's been up and down. It's hard to say. So if there isn't a ton of interest and there's nobody they're really bidding against, then I think the odds are probably a bit better that he returns than not, but it is possible that he moves on. But like I said, I think I give the slight edge to him sticking around a bit longer.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out this offseason. As always, you can leave your Raptors thoughts in the comments section below. For Ryan Wolstat, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.